Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming. I was going to start a moment ago when I stood up, but there was a very happy sound at the bottom, so I thought I'd wait. Thank you all for coming. This is an amazing place. Thank you for coming to the bar at the Exchange Campus. We've been here all day today, and they've bunting people, and they're hopefully going to go off and start on the street and all sorts. So we kind of reconnected with the actors of the 80s, and it's a lovely event, which is really exciting. And just go on the door down, because we all have beautiful photographs and memories of Greenham. I want to say that to you making all the noise. My partner is the one who demanding espresso martinis when I do a rapping before.
Keep demanding.
Because you've sat yourself right there, ready to fun on the team. So I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I come to be here, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, well, we'll go into that, talk a bit about my book, and she's got these amazing women. Bridget, who I mentioned, had her photographs from Greenham Commons on display, and Sue, who is, the two of them went to Greenham and then carried Greenham home here and became the vendor piece with it. Who, if you don't know, if you never knew that was going on in them, then you'll know more by then tonight and be very impressed, I think. Does everyone here sort of have a sense of what Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp was? I don't need to, hands up if you would like me to do it. You feel comfortable, all happy? Great. Because when I talk to some places like schools and things, obviously they all go, have you heard of it? They all go, I haven't heard of it. They have to explain in like 2 sentences, which is really hard. Because obviously it's thousands and thousands and thousands of women doing amazing things. But what I would say about Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp is that whilst there's a huge variety of aims and ambitions and passions that go there and different things that get sorted out there are 3 really big overriding sort of joint concerns. One is the American planes coming over with the cruise missiles on. One is the fact that the common land has been stolen from the people, one of the last pieces of common land being common. And the third is that men are making a terrible mess of the world, and patriarchy is probably long overdue its demise. And what I think is so amazing about Greenham and why it's so important to keep talking about and telling young people about is that it's tremendously successful on these 3 aims. If the American missiles do go, and whilst we can't, you can nitpick who managed to do most, but without that massive international conversation that Greenham created and continued, that certainly wouldn't have happened. To the point that Gorbachev actually said when he made the peace treaty with Reagan, the press said to him, "How can you trust Reagan? How are you sure this will hold together? How can you put your trust in him?" And he said, "I don't trust Reagan. I trust the women of Britain. I trust the Greenham women to hold him to account." So that's an amazing thing. They got the common back. The common is now the common. It's all of ours again. You can go and you can walk your dog and you can graze your cow and you can herd your geese and do whatever you like there. It's brilliant. And the local people, worked with the Greenham women and got that back. And you can't take that sort of thing away. That's a tremendous feature and a huge deal. They haven't quite ended patriarchy, but we are all still working on that one. That is a work in progress that we're all in. So basically, my mum took me to Greenham when I was little, which I feel very, very, very fortunate that happened to me, because it changed the course of sort of my whole life, really. It meant that I was becoming a feminist really early, analysing women's role in stories, even just Snow White and things like that. My mum was very critical that there's a story where girls just got praised for laying around and waiting for rescue. She was like, no, let's those other women do stuff. So all that stuff was happening to me when I was really little, and it definitely changed then all the choices I made for my whole life. And so when my mum died about 11 years ago, and I was also starting to be aware that women who were much more involved with the movement were also dying, I was really concerned that we would lose that powerful story and that massive success story. Like, we need to know that there's a point in trying to change things, because sometimes it works, and that you leave the world better than you found it. So we started this interview project, and I will talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but it results in an archive online called Greenham Women Everywhere. It's a living archive, we're constantly updating it. We've done a whole load of interviews today with some of the people in this room yesterday, and they will all join these long form archives. But some of the interviews are really quite detailed, like Sarah and Bridget, and they're all over the country. And then we were asked to make those into this book, which is the history of the camp, all the different facets of it, warts and all, but told through the voices of 50 to 80 women in this book, I think. So it's a really powerful way of verbatim history sort of sharing. So in a bit, I'll read you a couple of extracts from it, if that's okay, from women from different parts of the country, chatting about different aspects of the camp. But when I was doing all those interviews and putting it all together, and we can sing a couple of the Greenham songs as well, because music's such a massive part of the camp too, so we can perhaps read those in a little bit or edit them or whatever. But when I was doing those first set of interviews, I think one of my earliest interviews was with Sue and Bridget, and it's absolutely stayed with me and made me realise what a completely powerful, amazing island you have here. And the last 2 days of being here only confirmed that. It seems to really attract and nurture really active, passionate people and women power in particular. So I was just going to ask, would you introduce yourselves in the way that you'd like to be introduced, and just say what took you to Greenham as a start to this kind of conversation, really?
There were thousands of women at Greenham, and they all had their own personal story. Although Sue and I were very much involved with the Women for Life on Earth, Sue's initial politicisation, or whatever you like to call it, was different to mine. My story is different to hers. You tell yours first.
Well, the beginnings of it were, a woman wrote a letter to the Guardian saying that she felt isolated and she died inside because she didn't have any contact with other people. She was at home with her children, and she loved her children, but she thought there might be more. So the letter to the Guardian resulted in literally thousands of replies. Like, there was about 30,000 women wrote back and said, I feel like that, I feel like that. And out of that came these women's groups all over Britain. And it had an awful name because they didn't know what to call it, so they called it the National Housewives Register. Or because they thought that every time you moved somewhere, you could just ring up the number that was a contact for that group, and you'd go on the register, and the other women would find you. And it worked. It was huge. So we started a group, and there was about 10 of us in Vietnam. And one of the women, we started talking about all sorts of things. Each week we talk about something different, but not about husbands and babies and housework. It was about anything that would make our minds work again. And one of the women that came to the group, she's very young, she's about 17, 18, she's got 2 little children, and she said, I want to tell you I've been to a course. What was it about? And she said, it's how to survive a nuclear war. I said, what? So she said, yeah, there's a course, and there's a man called Colonel Appleton at County Hall, and he runs it, and he tells us what to do. So we'd never thought about all this before, and it suddenly woke us up, and we thought, we really need to do something about this, but we don't know what to do next. So we ran the CND, and this lovely man called Rudy from Champion came with a film. And the film was extraordinary. It was by an Australian doctor, and she made a film about the medical effects of nuclear war. What would happen to all of us if there was a nuclear war? And it was so moving and so shocking. And she said in the film, you'll be very frightened, and the fear's going to grow because of what's happening worldwide. But the minute that you start to do something, you'll lose your fear, and you can change the world. So we changed the world, because the next day we filled up the cinema in Ventnor with hundreds of people. There was a cinema in it, and showed that film again. And 3 women from Greenham came to talk to us about what they were doing there. And that just went the next day. We went the next day. It's going to make me cry. We got a coach, and a lot of us went the next day and found 30,000 other. Oh, it's extraordinary.
it is amazing.
And in those days, there was no mobile phones, there was no computers, there was no nothing. But a group of women sent her a chain letter saying, please come to Greenham Common, and explaining about the cruise missiles coming. And come to Greenham Common, but first of all, will you copy this 10 times? Send it to 10 people. And all over Britain, people sent that letter out. And that's how 35,000 women came. No phone calls, just those letters. And we didn't know that we were all going to be there. And then we had this extraordinary thing called Embrace the Base, where we decided that we would hold hands. I'm going to cry, I'm so sorry. We would hold hands around 12 miles of an American air base where nuclear weapons were. And we would take back that common for ourselves, and we wouldn't let them do this. And my mother, I discovered, lived in Newbury, which is the town nearest to Greenham Common, when she was a little girl, and she played on that common. And I didn't know that, and we got it back for her. And it took a lot of very brave women, some of them living there, but a lot of us realising, we've got children, we didn't want to leave our children and our families, but we wanted to support the women at Greenham, so we would travel up there often. But we brought Carrie Greenham home, we took it back to our homes.
Yeah.
And started groups wherever we lived to tell people what was going on. And that if we allowed the Americans to put those missiles in the middle of our country, it would make us a target. So the Russians would have to destroy the camp and destroy the 106 bases that the Americans had all over Britain. 106 bases they had, so we never knew anything about them. We didn't know that. We discovered a lot of things that we didn't know. And it's kind of like, you have to make people listen. So we got really, I can't think of the word, creative about how we were going to demonstrate. None of us has ever done anything like this before. So we chained ourselves to lots of things and tied ourselves up and got the press there, and Bridget and I did a demonstration in Portsmouth Harbour because there was a warship with nuclear weapons on it and nobody knew about that, and they were having an arms trade fair at the same time. So it's like imagining people from all over the world going to buy arms with their carrier bags and taking them home, and it was a multi-million-pound business, and nobody knew about that either. So we chained ourselves across the road to stop them going in, and then we slept on the streets in Portsmouth for a week to get people to listen. And they said, what are you doing here? And we said, well, you need to know what's going on down the road. There are lots of arms coming in and people selling them. And lots of lovely people joined us, and we didn't eat for a week. We decided we'd fast for a week because that might make people listen to us. So we did that. And people said, be very careful afterwards, just eat very slowly. But we had a lot of currant buns and cream buns. We felt a lot better. But there was the most beautiful thing was we got on the ferry to go home, thinking, I wonder what that was about. And we just turned around. Because you say it.
And it was a rainbow. And it's always been a symbol of hope, I think, for all of us. And that rainbow just kind of brought it all into vision for us.
For the whole,
And whenever I see a rainbow, I just think it's such a symbol of hope. That's what it felt for us, really.
Yeah.
But the thing was that people generally in society at that time were very scared because of what was going on with the Cold War. People were so frightened. And the minute that you decide you'll do something about it, you lose your fear, it's gone. Because you're taking control of your life. It doesn't have to be huge things, it can be something quite small. We chained ourselves to the radar station up on the downs because we decided that, well, the first thing that another country is going to do is bomb the communications. And that radar station communicates all around Britain. So we chained ourselves up to the fence and to the gates, and nobody came. So they woke up. There was a group of men working on there. So there was this thing next to me, so I pressed the button, and they said yes. A man said yes. What do you want? So So I said, well, we just chained ourselves up to your gate. You don't seem to be noticing. So actually, I'd like to come and see us and have a chat to us. It went very, very quiet. He said, Fred, there's some women out there that have chained us up. And so nothing else happened after that for a while. Meanwhile, we put the ITV news cameraman in a flock of sheep in the field opposite. And so he is hiding his camera. And then the police turned up and said, what are you doing? And we said, well, you know, if there's going to be a war, this is one of the first places they're going to bomb. So we don't want this town to be bombed and our kids to be killed, and we don't want this here. Also, there was a massive nuclear bunker underneath that radar station, which nobody knows about. We've been in there. It's huge. And it's a crime. Anyway, so the police then said, they had a long talk, and then they said, how would it be if we undid the chains and then let the men in and out to work and then chained you back up again? No, that's not it.
You totally misunderstood the situation.
So, there were lots and lots of things like that. There were lots of fun and lots of love between us all. And one of the things that really hit me about the camp at Greenham was it wasn't anti-men. It was because when the men were there, the police were very aggressive and very angry and were more violent towards everybody. So the men went home and looked after the kids and the women stayed there. But one of the most beautiful things that stays in my head is that it was so accepting of everybody at that place. And so a lot of very damaged, sick women came there who were really poorly and were gathered up and looked after. But no one else wanted in society. They were women that nobody wanted, and they needed to be loved. And no one was ever turned away. And to me, that was one of the biggest things that happened. Apart from all the politics of it all, and all the ballyhoo, no one was ever turned away and everybody was loved. And someone had a baby
You know, Sarah Green, she talks about it in this book, and she talks about the media representation of it and what made her stay and what made her go. Yeah, she is really involved now with the Stop the High Speed Railway, trying to protect that ancient forest outside Uxbridge and things. She's really done that. She's still living on these camps doing that stuff. There's actually a abstract that feeds really close into what you're saying, what you were just saying about acceptance. May I repackage it and then come to you for your story? Is that okay? Oh, it's a nightmare, isn't it? That's my plant in the audience to remind us all to turn off our phones. One of the women that's I refer to quite a bit in this book is a woman called Sue Say. She's one of the only women who was a woman of colour who actually lived at the camp, because they were treated so much worse by the police and any arrests. They always got long sentences, so it was harder for them to live there. Okay. Would you have if anyone is good at phones and they want to help them. I didn't offer because I told the phones and I wouldn't help them. So anyway, but Sue is really interesting because she did live there on and off for 6 years. And when I say on and off, I mean when she wasn't also in prison and all the way and things like that. So she's and she speaks very, she's a natural about the police. She's very like Sue. She speaks very, very passionately and amusingly and profoundly. But she gives this great account when she first arrived, an extensive thing. She was 19. She just quit her job because she was working in the auto trade industry and found it so sexist. She was like, I cannot carry on doing this. And she just arrived as this teenager at Greenham just to find out what on earth it was. She's just like, what is this? And can it offer me anything at all? But she had she was actually from quite a military family, military on one side, pacifist but very kind of controlling on the other. She's really from quite kind of a, not at all politicised around, especially around feminism. So she decides, she gets there, she's like, just have a walk round the base. She's like, I was quite determined when I got there. One of the things I wanted to do was walk around the fence. And I literally set off from Main Gate, which is what turns into Yellow Gate, heading towards Green. And as I got to the corner, there was this big piece of concrete, and there was a woman sat on this piece of concrete talking to a soldier. And I just stood there and listened to her. And this woman was telling this soldier, it's never too late. You have to recognise the abuse that you do. When I abused my children, I did this and this and this, and proceeded to talk about incredibly personal, made her incredibly vulnerable. And she was trying to say to this guy, it's never too late. You can change this. I've changed me, and you have to change you. And I just thought, she was so brave to recognise her own failings and to use them to try and help someone else to recognise theirs. And I think that was the single most powerful moment for me when I got to Greenham. I was thinking, what is she doing? She's insane. I'll tell you, some people, telling some complete stranger who's not on your side in any shape or form, why would you open your emotions like that? Tell them the worst things about yourself. Why would you open your vulnerabilities like that? And he massively stood there and abused her. And she sat there so calmly and said, well, that's what I've just been telling you. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, you have, good point. And I think that made more of an effect on me than it did on him, because it made me see there's another side to things, really. That it's so easy to see when someone else is doing wrong, but to acknowledge yourself and what you're doing is wrong and try and change it, no matter how bad it is. And that was what this woman was saying. To me, it doesn't matter how bad you've been, you can always change your life. You can always be different. You can always see what you're doing and stop it. And I found that quite powerful. Yeah, I found that very powerful when she was telling us about it as well. May I hand over to you, Richard, for you to it's your sort of entry?
I think Sue has covered a lot of areas already and very eloquently. But as I say, we never politicise until something touches us. We're not going to fight somebody else's battle, not as passionately as we would fight our own. And this battle, which it is, became my battle when the thought was all kicked off. Going out battleships, and amongst them was the Red Cross ship, and on its side the massive Red Cross. And at that point I thought, mother's sons are going to die, and I had my young children playing in the garden, aged 2 and 3, and I thought, I've got to protect my children, and this could blow up into something nice. Mrs. Thatcher had sent the battleships out to the Falklands, and I felt that I had got to do something for their future, for their lives. And at that point I was politicised, although I joined CND when I was 14, and that was because I'd seen pictures of Hiroshima, and I'd known at 14, although I was in a very conservative family, that this has not got to be right. And I've always been very, very anti-nuclear because of the toxic power of it. It comes from the, I've got a stick, I've got a bigger stick, I've got a bigger stick, I've got a gun, I've got a bigger gun, we've got a bomb, I've got a bigger bomb. We know that the world has got so many weapons that they can blow sort of fish. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful world. When you get politicised, you feel that you have got to do something. And that was where I was started from, and I joined, and we became very active, not only at Greenham, where we actually had a children's party on the runway, which was enormously good fun.
Also enormously costly to the military. So these incredibly creative things that they do that are total non-violent direct action, but actually that meant the planes can't land. So they said burning fuel in the air and getting angrier and angrier with the Tea Party and the children. So things like that are very clever.
Well, we sort of felt what we want blah 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 isn't necessarily creative. We just wanted to keep it in the public eye and make people aware, not only as part of Greenham, but also back here on the Isle of Wight. And very much there was a hub of women that felt very strongly about it in Ventnor, which is why it became called the Peace Women. Susan mentioned a couple of things. We also there was a demonstration in Shanklin where we got on top of the lift shaft and let down a 100-foot banner because there was a nuclear power exhibition below in the car park, and some of us checked ourselves out across that, and it was in the press because CND travelled over with women for life and had to get in. Quite rightly in some ways, because you need to know about things in order to set up a dialogue. Free speech is so important, whether it's good free speech or bad free speech. Unless you express yourself, you haven't got a dialogue going. So whether it's good or bad, if you express yourself and it's something that I don't necessarily agree with, if somebody's racist, I can put my side across. This is getting a little bit garbled, but sorry.
It's not.
My daughter is mixed race, and somebody wrote to the newspaper saying there's no such thing as racism on the Isle of Wight. If you're a mixed race, you know that there is. So that set up a dialogue in as much as she wrote to the newspaper telling all the things that had happened to her, and I wrote to the newspaper telling all the things that had happened to her. And you've got the dialogue going, and in the end, my daughter wrote to they contacted each other, and she did accept that there was racism on the island. Unless things are aired, whether they're good or bad, we can't talk about it, we can't change things. So it's so important that people don't blank us down and stop us speaking. Free speech and the power to protest is so vital.
Now,
Run out of words.
No, that's lovely.
Anyway, whether you agree or not, please talk to each other about whatever you feel, because human interaction is vital. Being passionate about things that you care about is vital. Don't just talk to people.
I was wondering if we could talk a bit about actions, since you both touched on some of them. I know that you both have some amazing actions, and then I've got a couple that I wanted to flag as well. You were involved in going to America, weren't you, Sue, and doing an action there that was a court case against Reagan, is that right? Would you tell us a little bit about that? Because we'll do Q&A as well, by the way, but I do think there's some stuff that I'd love you to know first, and then you can query your own questions. So what took you to, how did you get to America? What took you there?
There were 11 of us from all over Britain that wanted to take President Reagan to court for putting nuclear weapons here in our country. And we discovered through some amazing lawyers that there was some obscure law that said America couldn't put nuclear weapons here.
Oh, really?
I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, I put it all written down somewhere. And so we were going to take Reagan to court for breaking the law. So we found this extraordinary, not just with men and women, of lawyers, and it was called the Centre for Constitutional Rights in New York. And they had represented people from El Salvador and Nicaragua and all the places where the Americans done bad things. So they were representing people who were just ordinary people who couldn't fight their battles. And they found out about us, and they took us on. Extraordinary. This huge team of lawyers just looked after us, and they built this amazing case. It was incredible. So we landed up in, I can't remember what it was called, Big Court in New York anyway, Big Court. And we had a court case, and the idea of this was to tell American people what was going on so that they would understand the danger of putting nuclear weapons everywhere. It just makes us targets. But also I just really want to say something about the prison. They put us in prison because we broke the law. So they put us in prison.
What did that break the law?
I can't remember. I did something. Oh no, I know what we did. We chained ourselves up outside the United Nations building.
Oh, really?
Because they wouldn't listen. So nobody would listen to us. So but they put us in prison, which is fine because that meant we got more publicity. So the horror was the prison, and it was it's called a holding cell. It's just bars. It's like a square thing of bars all around you. So we got chucked in there. So we sang a lot, and about halfway through the night, the door opened, and a lot of women came in. These beautiful, exquisitely beautiful women, with hot pants and long leather boots, and dyed hair and lots and lots of makeup, and they were the prostitutes. who'd been used by the police and then arrested and then bound up. And they said, "What are you doing here?" So we told them, they said, "Why?" So we told them the story about the whole nuclear issue. They said, "We're coming." So they all came with us the next day, because they let us out the next day. They didn't want to keep us because we would have got more publicity. So the next day was the court case, and the women came.
They came to swell the ranks.
It was amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing women. It was just all about violence. Violence against those women and the violence of the nuclear weapons, and it's just all about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. There was something else I wanted to say. I can't remember what it was.
As soon as you remember, just give me a wave. Take it back in, don't worry. Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember.
Well, we've still got time. It's don't worry, it'll come back when it's ready. But I mean, it's amazing, and that idea of the web and all the connectivity, all the different actions. There's a talk that one of the things that's empowered by Greenham is they couldn't just arrest the leaders and therefore stop it all happening, because of course there weren't any leaders. Everyone's taking personal responsibility for their own actions. And I was thinking, Bridget, about not only are you involved in actions, but you're also you were photographing. We had this amazing set of amazing photographs documenting so many amazing parts of it, of other people's things that you saw there, different actions they were taking. Would you talk to us a little bit about, obviously anything from your own experience, but also things you might have seen other women doing that you saw with your photographer's eye, because you did a wonderful eye.
Yeah, as I said before, there were thousands of us. There was a lot of people, a lot of women that lived up there permanently, but there were thousands that were perhaps visited just for a day. There were coach that would come for actions, and there were many different actions to get in the place. There's no point being a tree in the forest that falls over a number of years. You've got to get in the press, you've got to get on the radio, and so there were certain actions that we went to, like the perimeter fence joining hands. That was very, very precious. And then the Peggy Seeger song, I think it's the 9-Mile Fence.
It's the Carry Greenham Home.
Carry Greenham Home is such a wonderful song. And the songs of Greenham are wonderful and stirring, and I hope we hear some of them. We went to so many actions. There was the Dragon Festival, where many, many banners were made all over the country, and yards and yards and yards and yards and yards. It was a lovely festival, and a lot of children there, and very colourful. We went on Halloween, and we all picnicked around the fence, and the police obviously knew what was going on because they'd infiltrated the Greenham. They got the time wrong, and we all got bow cuts to hold the picnic, and then at a certain time we snipped. The fence is very easy to cut down because you've got all these posts, and we only had to snip where it was joined on. So we'd snip where it was joined on, we rolled back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet between us on the fence, and we'd all dressed up as, the witchy hats, sort of that kind of painted CND symbols on our faces and webs and things. The police knew there was something happening, and after it all happened, and the army was in there, the British Army protecting the American base, and they'd all got these walkie-talkies that didn't work. And the police rolled up in all these coaches, and it was all over. We finished, and we hadn't actually gone onto the base. We just wanted to show that this was something that was possible.
Yeah.
Everybody brought something different. We're all different people. We've all got different stories, which is why Rebecca's book is so important. It's seeing so many different angles from everybody's sort of point of view.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Even though Sue and I are very close, we've known each other 40 years, we still come from a different angle, and everybody's got their own personal stories. Just yesterday somebody asked a question, and she said she felt that there was so much negativity in the world. There's AI.
Yes.
There's AI, there's viruses, there's global warming, there's the threat of nuclear bomb, etc., etc., etc. I've got grandchildren, I fear for their future. She felt disempowered, and she said, afterwards I talked to her, and she said, Greenham was the focus. Women had a focus to go to, no longer got a focus. This sounds irrelevant, but it isn't. My son gave me a box of Booja chocolates once, and and inside they always give a little message. And in this box it said, the world is not about you. And I've always thought, the world is not about me. And then last night I thought, because somebody else gave me a box of Budapest chocolates, and it said in it, did you plan much of what is happening right now? And it is up to each and every one of us. We can't change the world. We can't change other people. We can change ourselves. If we feel strongly enough about something, I thought afterwards, this woman said, we haven't got to focus. Okay, let's make one. You know, don't wait for somebody else to do it. We have to empower ourselves by perhaps reach out to a friend and do something. I know that when there were various wars, and I stood down here with my banner on my own. Somebody or other was having a war, and they said it was a mother of all battles. I was so angry because I love being a mother. My kids gave me motherhood. It's such a gift. It doesn't have to be. Everybody has different things that are precious to them. But if you feel something, you've got to speak out. You don't have to glue yourself to a road. You have to do what you feel is okay. You can go and talk to somebody. You can ring somebody up. Just do what you feel is precious to you. Go take a photograph of something. Yesterday I took a photograph of, I was walking past here, and on their bin, they put two eyes, and there was a green plastic bag. I took a photograph of it, it made me laugh. And I've been showing it to people because it made me laugh. If something matters to you, tell people. It's no use keeping it in. Have a dialogue, talk to people. You don't have to be angry. Just keep the dialogue going. You know? That is what is so important. Taking photographs at Greenham, I've always taken photographs since I was 7. My mum had a box brownie, which is very hard because everything was upside down. And then I bought a little camera in Walworth that cost £260. Following week I bought the case that was also £260. And it had a little flap that you could take pictures through. But those are memories. It doesn't matter if it's a snap, it doesn't matter if it's a good photograph. That to you is going to be a memory. It's precious. And it will spark up feelings and smells and remembrances and friendships. And things are so precious. You have to live in the past, okay? You have to live in the moment, we have to live in the future. We have to believe in the future. And it's hard, but we've got to make it the future. And it's up to us.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for me to say that. We live in this idyllic place, which is gorgeous. I look out at this park, you see, Ventnor is fabulous. People are lovely. We've got a place like the Fringe and the Arts Club. You know, it's a buzzing place. The Fringe is fabulous. Everybody is so friendly. It's very easy for me to say this because I'm privileged. But I just think freedom of speech is not a privilege, it's a right. You must have a dialogue. I'll stop ranting now. But I won't stop ranting forever.
I was going to say, don't promise me all you can't hear it, you shouldn't keep on the stage. I think I'm going to keep hearing. And what you're saying is bang on as well. So we're going to ask you to speak more than any time. So. That seems like a great point to sing a Greenham song, if that's all right. And then, with your permission, I think I'll open it up to a bit of Q&A. Does that sound like a good idea? All right. Great. So I'll sing a song that I think most of you will know it, and it comes up absolutely tons in the interviews, just loads and loads, because it's You Can't Kill the Spirit, which you probably will know the chorus, which goes, you can't kill the spirit, she's like a mountain, old and strong, she lives on and on. Do you know that? So if you're familiar with that? Yeah? So we could, when that comes up, if you want to join in, that would be lovely. Now, the way it comes up in the interviews is really funny, because it's one of the songs that people quite often would link arms to when they were facing down police, and it would give great strength, and it would just repeat that chorus over and over and over, and really unify, large tracks of sometimes hundreds of women, and really to empower each other and to face down something that they would be quite frightening. And so, if you were a visitor to the camp, when you talk about that song, the women in the interviews, the women who were visitors to the camp will say, who went for actions but didn't perhaps live there, will go, oh my God, I love that song. Oh, it brings back the smell of the wood smoke, and all that stuff. And they're really passionate about it. And then the women that live there, and you bring up that song, they go, oh my God, that song. And it does go on and on. So what I've done verses, which are really, there's only two, it's not a long song, but there's two very pretty verses. It's by a Native American activist. And now even the most seasoned Greenham woman has assured me, and actually Sue, who's really adamant about it, but she actually will sit and very happily listen to it with the verses in. So I'll sing it to you with the verses, and if you know them, please join in, and definitely join in with the chorus. Please, please, please. Nobody can push back an ocean. It's gonna rise back up in waves. And nobody can stop the wind from blowing, stop the mind from growing. And somebody might stop my voice from singing, but the song will live on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain, old and strong. She lives on and on. Nobody can stop a woman from feeling. She has to rise up like the sun. And somebody might change the words we're saying, but the truth will live on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain, old and strong. She lives on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain, old and strong. She lives on and on. That was so lovely. Did anyone not know it before we started it? Did you sing along? You hummed, you sang, so you. Well done.
I've never heard the verse.
Isn't it lovely? It's beautiful writing, isn't it? What kind of
We just sang the chorus over and over.
Yeah.
I kept going up in the car because I've got the worst voice, and I'm surprised you haven't all left me. Because even singing quietly, I've got to turn my voice. And Rebecca's got a gorgeous voice. That was just beautiful.
Oh, wow, thanks, very kind. You don't want to ruin a good song, do you? Shame. It sounded much nicer than everyone did it, so I'm going to do just a reading about an action, small math action that I think is really sweet, because it sort of finishes off that world in a way. And then I'm doing that as sort of taking about a minute to read this, so in that time think about your questions and what you might want to ask. So this is a really amazing, another photographer actually, called Judith Barron, who is a lovely Greenham photographer, a really fun woman, and I know her from Aldermaston Women's Peace Camp, which was founded by Greenham women, but still runs to this day. Aldermaston's just down the road. It's where they are making our next round of nuclear weapons. So it's a really important place to protest. And the Aldermaston women still have every second weekend of the month, there's a women-only peace camp there, and it's lovely. They can visit as a bloke, there's Buchanan stay for as a woman, and it's a really dynamic space. And if you fancy a weekend there in July, they're doing a big kind of get to know us, get to hang out with us, and talk about. They're lots of fun. They're very arty, but they're also talking about what's happening now. The missiles flew back to Lake in Heath for the first time since they got rid of crews. Well, so there's lots to talk about, but they're brilliant women to talk about. Really good fun. Well, Judith Barron will probably be there. And she talks about, she used to live at a little gate called Woad. All the gates have these different colours and the gates have different personalities. You sort of found your right vibe, didn't you, at the gates? And this was a little gate that was in the small and calm, she describes it as, whereas Blue, which was nearby, was quite a party gate. So she says, my favourite action when I was living at Woad, and it's just a bit damned. I think we went in, it was somewhere near Green Gate. I can't remember exactly, but people near Blue Gate, the Blue Gate was on the road, and that road led to the skip. And sometimes people would stop off and just drop things off for us. Things they wanted to give us that they thought might be useful, but they didn't want anymore. And and perhaps they couldn't be bothered to go any further down the road. But they used to sometimes give us furniture. And so we'd have armchairs and sofas, and someone dropped off this sofa, and we already had a sofa, so we didn't want it. This is before, I should say, all the evictions, where they just lose everything. They start to get evicted several times a day, and then they don't have furniture anymore. But this is the halcyon days before that was happening. So we dragged this sofa around to a little clearing in between the gates, and we went just inside in the fence, and they dragged it inside, and they set up in the base, in the military base, like this sofa, and we dragged a box, and on the box we drew a television, and we had some sweets and stuff, and biscuits, and pretended that we were all sitting there in their base, but watching television. And when the MOD came around, the military police, we said, please don't come into our living room without permission. And they sort of stopped and went along with it. And then I can't actually remember if they processed us or not, she says. But anyway, they wanted someone to sign for the sofa, and none of us would sign for it because we didn't want it. So we had to keep it. So there you go, just a damp but really nice little thing. So, should we open it up for a bit of Q&A? You must have heard stuff.
Can I just say something?
Oh yeah, always.
Well, things have come into my mind at a strange time.
Yeah.
Just listening to us, you won't get the idea about how multinational, I can't think of the right word, but the women were. There were women literally from all over the world. We met Russian women, Japanese women, Aboriginal women. The Aboriginal women said, we have ancient stories that say, when you dig into the mountain to take the uranium away to make plutonium, you release spirits that should not be released, and they can't be put back. So that was huge. They never talked about that anywhere before, but they came to Greenham and told stories to us, and so did Russian women, and then it made us feel really strongly that if there were a war, we didn't want to kill women in Russia and their babies, or Japanese women, and there were Japanese women that came from Hiroshima. So we met women from all over the world and made connections that was the web, I'm sure most of you know, is a symbol of Greenham. And it was just extraordinary. When I first went there, we were sitting on the ground, a huge group of us, and suddenly there are balls of wool flying through the air. All over the place, balls of wool. And you said, well, what are they doing that for? And more balls of wool came, and in the end, all of us were inside a beautiful web.
Oh, wow.
And so the web is a real symbol of Greenham, and that's why it's all over the fence, and it's drawn everywhere.
Yeah.
And the web is strong, really strong.
I love that. There's a woman called Ray who uses the web a lot, and she's in my book a lot, and she talks about how they would have balls of wool in their pockets when they were going into their court cases, and then obviously you don't get wool taken off you, just a woman coming into court. They all had in their pockets, and then at some point they would just start throwing the wool around, well up the whole courtroom, and like you've done no harm to anybody, but it's incredibly hard to carry on, and it's very clear to the court that you're not taking them terribly seriously. You've just webbed everything up, which I think is absolutely lovely.
It made the police powerless.
Yeah.
They had no idea what to do about a lot of women covered in wool.
So one of my favourite photographs is those two policemen looking in front. There's two policemen, and there's women on the ground, and they're covered in wool. They've webbed up themselves on the whole area and all over the fence, and they're just lying there doing dying, covered in web. And these two policemen, there's about 4 or 5 of them, they're all stood around this, and they've got like notebooks out, and they're like, you can just, they're just like, you can see that one of them just, really feel like one's going, Jim, what are you going to write in your notebook, Jim? I don't know what I'm going to build, we didn't cover this in training. They're just totally at a loss. It's absolutely lovely. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask, or ask Sue or Bridget, or share, or feed in?
Can you tell the story about the cake? Told on Thursday. The cake.
Oh yeah. I've already tell you this. Have I told you?
I don't know. Tell me about it. I know, mate. They don't know what I know.
Well, I was on the bus and going to Newport, and there was a carnival float in somebody's garden, and it was a big, huge cake, 2 tiers of a cake. I thought, oh my God, look at that. So I got off the bus, went and knocked on the door and said, can I borrow your cake? And they said, yeah, what do you want it for? And I said, well, just would like to use it, but we'll bring it back. And so it was hollow. So we towed it to Greenham and filled it with children.
As you do.
And this was the day of the big children's party. It wasn't just for big children. It was actually a big party. And we drove around the base because every now and then they would open. There were a lot of gates, about 9 gates all the way around. So they would open those gates every now and then. We thought, well, when they open one, we'll just drive in and then we'll drive up and down the runway and have fun. So they shut all the bloody gates, so I couldn't get in. So I said to the kids, we've all got to get out. So we cut a hole in the fence, and all the children streamed in with bikes, balloons, scooters, footballs, everything. They all streamed in. And I had my cousin there, who was a photographer from Fleet Street, and he photographed everything. He photographed us in Portsmouth Harbour on the boat and everything. And he was filming us, and he went to come in with us, and the policeman said, "You can't go in, you're not a woman." Wouldn't let him in, which was so stupid. Really funny.
That's really, really nice. Thank you, that's a really good prompt. That's lovely. I don't think I did that. Oh, I'd forgotten it and I'm very happy remembering it. Anyone else got anything they want to ask Bridget or Sue? Yes.
I had a question about, you were saying about nuclear power and missiles. Back in the 80s, there was a big movement against nuclear power in the UK, and we all remember those stickers, 9-Dagger.
Yeah.
But it seems that times have changed quite a lot now, and there seems to be a general acceptance of nuclear power as a generation of energy. Well, I was wondering what your thoughts were
Yeah.
on that.
It's all about the money, but also they don't realise, people don't realise, and we need to tell them, that those power stations are causing enormous pollution just by being there. So the nuclear fuel cycle produces plutonium, and there's nuclear waste which comes out, water comes out, mostly goes into the sea, which is why we got Geiger counters from Southampton University to go and test the beaches here. And our children swimming in the sea.
My children used to go up to people on the beach and say, "You shouldn't be swimming in the sea because the seaweed's got the cesium B on it." That's my fault. Because we were so involved in this, we sat on top of the nuclear bunker up here until Maurice Barton came, who was from the council, and asked them to check the cesium B, which I believe they did for many years. They checked the toxicity around the island. Everybody just chucks stuff in the sea, and it's not acceptable. It's not a place for disposal. We demonstrated. I personally demonstrated at Greenham and here until April 26, 1986. When Chernobyl happened, I thought, we've demonstrated. We've had Chernobyl, which was horrific. If it hadn't been for the sacrifice that the Belarusian army they gave their lives because they were men at it and they were burnt, it would have covered all of Europe. The cloud from Chernobyl came out of the Isle of Wight. A few days later, went all over Europe and did affect us because it was all shushed up. Nuclear power is not safe. And any nuclear power station is a target. And Fukushima happened, and everybody still happily accepts nuclear power. I mean, you all know about nuclear waste. It's put under the earth for generations and generations and generations to cope with. Whether there'll be a world or not, I don't know. But it's do we really? These are people who've got children and grandchildren, and yet they care more about money than their children. I don't understand. You know, I'm just an ordinary person, and it seems crazy to me that we should be polluting our world to such a terrific extent in such a toxic manner. Have we got no conscience at all? Nuclear power, to me, it is horrific. And the way we've abused the minerals of our earth, Namibia, where they've just raped the earth basically for uranium, etc., for money. And just the other day I had an email from Greenpeace where they're now searching deep ocean, completely wrecking deep ocean, looking for more minerals. They found 5,000 new species. Okay, in a year, 5,000 new species. We've only got 4,000 new species. What are they doing down there? What are they wrecking the world for? We've got this beautiful world, and we're doing everything we can to destroy it. Where is the sense in that? I'm afraid I don't have the answers. I only have the questions.
There is a really interesting link, I think, though, with because a lot of Greenham women have carried on being activists as have you, and there is a lot of them do things like training members of XR and NVDA and handing on and not even just handing on, but actually being involved with all the different generations of activism and sharing skills. But I think there is a really interesting that, you know, we've talked about the really visceral fear a lot over the last few days that I know is in my childhood and has been around that motivates people to be frightened of the bomb. And young people have that about climate change. And I think actually that dialogue we were talking about is so important. I mean, the threat of nuclear, power stations and weapons are linked because it's the same companies, the same people, and they are absolutely part of the climate crisis. They're not a solution. They're actually part of it, or whether we think they're a solution or not, could be part of that whole dialogue. You know, and not everyone in the Green movement agrees with that, and so on and so on. And I think that dialogue is really important to happen, rather than them seeing younger people seeing nuclear as a separate thing that we dealt with, and like you say, not realising it's actually a very current thing, and that we probably will need to be making decisions about. You know, just stuff like the fact that we subsidise to the tune of many millions, if not billions of pounds every year, certainly millions of pounds every year. We subsidise scientists to work in the nuclear industry. We could be subsidising them to be working on any manner of climate change. But we can't throw our tax in the market, throw my tax to go to them solving climate crisis. We're not subsidising them for that. We're subsidising them to make more better weapons, and then moving that across to. And now that we've got a really strong nuclear industry, that's nuclear power out of it as well. Ka-ching, ka-ching. And I think actually we just let's be smarter about where we spend our tax money. Let's have those wonderful scientists doing what we need and integrate those conversations. Yes, sorry, I should say that.
I moved to Ventnor when these lot were really in full swing, and I met them around what was the youth club at a course that was being run by the WEA, Workers' Educational Association, on women's rights and whatever. But they then cancelled because not enough people turned up. You know, it was, I think, maybe 2 sessions I made of it, but that drew me into their world. But I am something of a need to check it for myself person, because you were already in full swing, and I love you both, the bones of both of you, but it wasn't just you, and that's the bit that, as you come into it later, at the time when The Wind Blow was out, Rose Raymond Briggs' book was out, and you could buy it in paper lines. It wasn't paper lines back in those days, but it was everywhere. You're talking about how the radar station would be a target. You could buy a book called Protect and Survive, and it had Ventnor on the map and the radar station on the map. So as focused on women and what women did, the impact waved out, didn't it? Because I moved here in '83, so they've been doing all their grown-up, serious, getting arrested, all the rest of it stuff for a few years. But I think you just do what you do, and you're not responsible for what other people do in response to it. But I think you can give people inspiration. I mean, that's the word I'm looking for, because the Raymond Briggs book, I've actually got video of it, and I remember watching it years ago, and I cannot bear to take it out in the DVD. I cannot bear to take it out of the case now, because I'm more frightened 40 years later than I was then, because what I believed, and I was in my late 20s at the time, was once everybody knows, they'll take action. They'll all feel the same. And I tried to make sense. I was studying over at Portsmouth Poly doing a sociology degree, and my brain always goes into this. So what's going on? What's really happening here? And the truth is that histories get lost. They get hidden. And when they decided, when they were making the curriculums for history, and they said, and we won't look at recent history, that was a huge decision. It just meant there was a blind spot. So unless it's on the TV, unless it's in the papers,
Or unless we look at it, which is,
you
you know,
lived it.
Yeah.
Living it is one thing, having vivid memories of being there. But I have little videos on my phone of my 2-year-old granddaughter singing "Who Are the Witches," and
oh, lovely.
you can find some great stuff on the internet. But it's me sitting by myself with a phone. There isn't that wander into paper lines, and it's very vividly in front of you. And so something has happened to the fact that we've got more information in our lives and access to more information, but we don't know the relevance of what it is that we need to be looking at. We're
Yeah.
you know that
And there's a
busy
record,
mind.
sort of lack of faith in the media we used to sort of perhaps trust in more as well, isn't there? But maybe that's a really good opportunity for us to trust in each other and to have these dialogue shares and to exchange experiences and build up a new kind of faith and network and make those decisions for ourselves. Because even back in the day when we did trust media more, they weren't always trustworthy, but they didn't always merit that trust necessarily. And Greenham is an amazing example of that. If you listen to the main media about Greenham from a couple of years in, you just thought they were all, you know, neglectful mothers, raising their children in filth, lesbians, children, and all the rest of it. I mean, it sounds brilliant to me. And, you know, you'd have thought they were batty, and actually, you know, here we are again needing all that sense of wisdom and lesbianism. That's your you know, that can be very liberating too.
Can I just the power of the media to distort is so powerful. It's so powerful. Rebecca had a brilliant program on the radio once, which I listened to, and she was saying how powerful Greenham had been and how much we've been involved in the European peace movement in getting Gorbachev and Reagan to sign this peace treaty in '97, which was current for years and years and years until Trump ripped it up. Right at the end, which I said, I've got bone to pick with you, Rebecca, which I think hurt her. Heseltine came on and said, they signed because we had a bigger bomb. They didn't let us have a comeback.
You misremembered, but I have to correct you. You're right, there was too much Heseltine. That was not the end of the programme. So he comes on along right around. You probably stopped listening. Don't blame you. When I heard the whole thing, because I'm a nobody, and this lovely producer spoke with me, and I said, oh, it's all right, but there's still more we can say about you. Can we cut the Heseltine down a bit more? And it was really interesting to interview him, because it was fascinating to meet this guy who, you know, one breath is saying all these women did nothing, but at the same time it was very important that I was there to change the media, because actually everybody can't so much. And his whole house, massive, beautiful place. He very kindly let us into and let us talk to him for a very long time. But it's full of pictures of himself, or oil paintings of himself. It's the strangest place. But anyway, so I said to my producer, "Oh, isn't he gets in opening review on that? Can't we cut that bit down and then have a little bit more Greenham women in?" And my producer said, "No, Rebecca, my boss has already told me off, because he said, I've already been taken aside and told that this is a very unusual programme in that it's not got the BBC two sides thing. It's clearly Rebecca wants everyone to know this about the Greenham Women programme, and not at all about like this side and that side. If you take out any more Heseltine, it won't pass the BBC standards going out on air at all." And the big bias, I was like, "Well, it's a big bias." I was like, "Yes, I know, you are completely biased." Like, all media says, "I know that." So that Heseltine thing does land with me. I'm really sorry.
No.
But there's loads more Green
Please
Lanterns,
don't
I
be sorry.
promise you.
I'm just saying it's the power of the media
Yeah.
to be powerful
And to see one thing as bias and their own stuff.
It's another thing.
Not sense.
Vietnam War to me was finished by that amazing picture of a child running there with her back on fire. I don't know if you remember it, but there's a colour supplement. Little girl in Vietnam, she was running with her, and it was the most amazing picture. And everybody could see that this child running with napalm on her back was wrong. I've seen the original picture, and it tells a bigger story. There's soldiers standing by, not taking that. Just have noticed, they've been totally desensitised. There's something wrong with this world where we're desensitised.
Yeah.
It's a bigger picture, it's not just Greenham, it's a bigger picture. Wherever we see injustice, we have to speak out. And that's not just Greenham 40 years ago, not just the seas that have got polluted in our beautiful world. We have to speak out about the pollution, the shit in our seas. Anything that touches racism, There was a woman here earlier that was for animal rights. I know she came in.
Fiona.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. You know,
Got
I mean,
nothing to
whatever
do with
whatever
that.
touches us, we must speak out about. But are you going to speak out about what really truly touches us? Speak out, because then you've got a dialogue going, and you can possibly change another person's point of view. And when you do that, it's little wins, and that's what matters.
Yeah. What would you speak out about now, Sue? What would you say?
Well, I might be a little bit controversial because right, we went to prison, we got in the papers, we got on the television, we did everything that we could do. And then we got exhausted and we got ill. A lot of us got ill. Like mentally and emotionally and physically. They couldn't do it anymore. And I ran away and hid in the mountains in Scotland with my large family because I couldn't face everything anymore. And a lot of women stopped because we couldn't do it anymore. But then I found out this extraordinary thing. Like for me, I was in a remote Scottish village and there wasn't anything going on except a yoga class. So I went to that yoga class and it actually saved my life. It was deep relaxation and meditation. And I trained to teach it myself. And a lot of the women became very involved in therapeutic methods to help people. So they became healers of all different kinds, like homeopaths, acupuncturists, therapists, psychotherapists. And now I feel really strongly, because I heard about an experiment that happened in Birmingham, that was about a group of people that had been meditating together for a long time. And they decided that they would meditate a lot more frequently and for longer periods. And they didn't tell anybody about it, they just did it. And the crime rate dropped right down. And the police didn't understand why, and it never ever happened before. And that really touched my heart, that actually it's about changing consciousness. We can change the world just by sitting at home and meditating. Start meditating, start doing it. You'll change the world. You don't need to go anywhere. And I think what we did was important and powerful. But this is more important.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I'm not going to argue with you about the power of course meditation. The woman who helped me found and run Scary for Girls for a long time was a meditation teacher and one of the most awesome people I know in the whole world. Shazandri. Did you have a question?
I wanted to ask about protesting now and how it was then, because the laws are becoming more and more right-wing, draconian about protest, and I wonder what your reflections are on what happened then and what have we gone full circle? I mean, where are we now in relation to government policy and protest?
I've just had half a pint of water, which is talking. And I've probably already said this, but freedom of speech, the freedom to demonstrate what we feel, whatever we feel, is not a privilege, it's a right. And in this country, at the moment, we're not put in prison, we're just saying what we think, right or wrong. But unless we can demonstrate and say what we feel, we won't set up, it's no use bottling it up. You have to, if you feel like you want to demonstrate, even if it's just on your own, I think we should still demonstrate that. Otherwise, you look around the world where women have no rights whatsoever, they certainly don't have the right to speak out. Otherwise, they're totally denigrated or put in prison, not just women, men are put in prison and tortured. We have to keep this democratic right to speak our mind. We have that freedom and we must fight for that freedom. I probably already said that, but I just think it's so important. Whoever we are, whether you're 5 or 50 or 100, doesn't matter who you are, what colour you are, we all must speak out. Even if it's just one-to-one, express our feelings. That's part of we are. I saw a film called Banshees of Inisherin. I'm the only person I know that's seen it. They said it was a comedy.
No,
I think it was. It's about isolation and human interaction. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. But it is very grisly, and it's about people on an island that it rejects a friend because he's talking donkey poo, basically, and he wants to have more cerebral conversations. Nobody there went to have a contact with like-minded people. There's also somebody's sister. She doesn't have this relationship where she can talk about things that are important to her. Isolation can be so profound. We have to reach out, even in a little way, to other people on our level, and we have to find like-minded people. The trouble is here, we're probably all pretty much agreeing with each other. We need to be, it's a shame when it's not somebody really fascist and right-wing stood in the corner. You know, we need that so that we can bounce it off and talk about it. You know, agreeing with each other is great, and you know, sisterhood and wonderful, and I met Caroline, she's wonderful, I want to keep her in my life. You know, it's like-minded stuff, she's an art teacher, wonderful. But we also need this other point of view, because everybody's coming from a different angle because of their own personal journey. We can't really judge people, we don't know where they're coming from, what's happened to them, what dreadful things have happened to them, what wonderful things have happened to them. We shouldn't be judgmental, but we do need to listen to each other and find people, you know, that spark us off and we can really communicate with and keep this dialogue going. Meditation is very important too, and I totally agree to walk on the beach, on the sea. I haven't got the hang of meditation yet. I still think that it's very, I like this one. But I don't agree with it all the time. They're all different. I just think you've got to go your own way. But Sally this morning came in my shed, and we were doing little messages, and she said to be kind and love each other. And I just, that was so lovely. And kindness to me is the top of the tree. If you're not kind, I don't know why you're bothered really.
Sue, what do you think about the links that you see, or from work? Are there differences and similarities between what it was like to protest then and what it might like to protest now?
I think we should be really, really supportive of Extinction Rebellion, because I know that there were specially trained police that tried to hurt us very badly, and they were trained to hurt us secretly. And I was talking yesterday about being frog marched off the common, and a policeman had my arm on my back, and I knew what he was doing, and he was trying to break my arm. And the women that were outside the fence saw, and we learned by now to say, be the witness of what you see. And we had a special song to sing about what they were doing, and they said, we're watching you. And he let go of my arm, and I know he would have broken my arm. So in Extinction Rebellion, the police will be specially trained to hurt them and stop them. So it's really powerful and frightening, but when you're together, it's not. It's okay.
May I respond as well? Do you mind? Just on this, but just I totally agree with everything's been said, but I'm also aware with all the interviews that we've done that have come up, I'm really conscious of the fact that the way that the law began to make things illegal that weren't at the time, so that they could arrest the Greenham women, has been a cat and mouse, chicken and egg situation that I think has led us to, well, actually that was quite effective, let's make more and more things illegal, more and more things arrestable, until you get to the point where we've got the policing bill we have now, where you can pre-arrest people for wearing the wrong colour of the coronation. And I do think that is really dangerous. So it's a time to be even more inventive, even more creative, even certainly at non-violent direct action, but to keep making those actions, because you cannot, like they said, that we've been saying in the book, you cannot stop something that comes at you in so many different peaceful ways, so many inventive ways. And we've all got to be an active population. I really do think that we cannot go gently into that good night, because it's only through visibility and action and solidarity with each other that we will avoid a situation where that we are rapidly, possibly already steeped in, but can be changed because we are still, to say, nominally and compared to other places in the world, a democratic nation. So we do need to be visible and there for each other and keep being active, I think, creatively active. I think you had a question, didn't you? I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. I don't know if people are aware there's a newspaper called Light, which you can get on the island, and it's called the Freedom Movement.
Oh, okay.
And they know about AI, the Great Reset, currency going, the mealworms they put in the children's lasagna, and to try at school, which actually came out on the television. I first saw it in that newspaper, The Light, that they're going to try, because they say we're going short of protein. So things like mealworms and whatever, locusts, they're putting in lasagna in the children's school dinners in the newspaper, and I found that hard to accept. And then it was on the news and it was on the television. And there is a newspaper, The Light, and these people are doctors and scientists, they're clever people, they do their research. They pay for the magazine out of their own pocket. You can get it in Venice, you can get it in a bakery by McDonald's in Newport. You can, Better Days used to have it, sometimes they have it. Various places, sometimes they push them through the doors. They pay for this newspaper out of their own money. And David Icke is connected to it, which puts a lot of people off. But if you read some of the stuff, no, but it exposes a lot of stuff, you know. And also about the COVID jab, which I never had. I wouldn't have it, I'm anti-vax. Exposes a lot of stuff, and it comes there before you see it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Then about the New World Order, the Great Reset, the plan the government's got, the police getting more powers, you know, all what you're talking about. But people, I've tried to talk to people on buses and in shops and everywhere I go. Some get angry, some are interested, some listen. Others just want to bury their head in the sand, like we're all getting brainwashed. You know,
It's like you say, as long as we don't all have to agree with each other, to still talk about different stuff and come to different conclusions about the stuff that's out there.
yeah.
And that's, again, I think a really important thing. That Greenham women did not agree with each other, or indeed interpret the same things that were happening to them the same way. There's real big differences, but they could still sit together when it mattered, join hands, look out for each other, and you know, not let the bastards grind them down. So it's really important. Can I read one last bit, and then what we'll do is perhaps do one more song, and then just have an informal last bit, or like you can just all go out to the bar, or just anything else you want to chat about. We can just do that in the song we've got until 6, but we'll kind of wind it down and be more one-to-one about it. Does that sound nice?
You buy a copy of the book.
Oh, well, again, my plan from earlier, doing her job, you can buy a copy of the book. We're selling it to you from the lovely Colin, who's currently on tech. We'll sell you, and it will be without the postage price, of course, as well. So this is the time to get it, and I'm very happy to sign it if you would like that as well. Very happy not to sign it if you don't want that. But and I was home educated, so I have the world's best signature. So just.
Yay!
Yeah, well, we can talk about that at the end, you know, in our informal wind down. So this last section, the last section of the book is one of my favourites. It's about it's called Legacies. Our 2 dogs have finally noticed each other across the room. One of them is my dog. She's been the loud one. Hugo's been very well behaved, actually. There's a woman called Lorna Richardson. I think you would love. She's absolutely cut from your cloth. She's wonderful. And she's a Quaker, but she's done all sorts of actions all over the world. She nearly got blown up in the Nevada desert because they went to protest a nuclear test, and the testers didn't realise they were there, and then there was a whole load of international calls going, "Don't blow up bloody British citizens! Don't do the test!" So there was a whole but she obviously was saved, and she's interviewed in the archive, and she's one of the last people. Her and Frankie Armstrong, the wonderful singer, are the last 2 people we quote in the book. And I wanted to read you this because I don't interview all the women. There was a wonderful team of volunteers between us. We interviewed all these amazing women, but I did interview Lorna, and what I love what she says. And this is when I asked her if there's anything she wanted to say that summed up. If there's anything I hadn't asked her, anything that she wanted to say. And this was her sum up. So the last thing she wanted to know. And she knew my story. She knew that my mum had taken me when I was little. So she says a lot of women's work is rendered invisible because people think that elves did it in the night, and it happened magically with no actual input involved. And the thing about a lot of Greenham is that we did it on tuppence. It was women with no money and no time. I mean, Rebecca, she's talking now to me, and I was like, your mother, you're talking about your mum, she had you. Women were carving time out of their lives. They did not have to spare. They were carving money out of their lives. They did not have to spare. They were carving emotional energy out of their lives that they did not have to spare. And all those women created something that changed things. It changed public policy on a national level. I mean, Britain didn't go unilateralist, and it's unlikely to do anytime soon. But you can create conditions in which people make decisions in a very different way to the way they have before. And it changed international situation as part of a larger whole. And it changed individual women to a massive extent, some of whom have then gone on to create other things. It changed the way of working. It changed the way I learned to live and work by being at Greenham. That collaborative, collective way that shaped my entire life. And I believe it's done the same for a lot of other women. And all those things took women who did not have time, who did not have money, who did not have energy, who did it anyway. And you know, the idea that all political movement that would have happened without that work, well, it's just not true. And so that's why I'm grateful for any innovation that records it. Partly because, well, because elves didn't do it in the night. We did it. I did it, your mum did it. Loads of other women did it too. So there you go. Let's have should we sing the song that has the line that we love, the Carrie Greenham home song? So it's a number of verses, so I won't do all of them because it's a bit. You'll be sat here for too long. But I'll do my favourite sort of 2 or 3. I'll do your favourite, and I'll do my favourite, which is the last one, and I'll pick one from the middle. How about that? And obviously in between, you get the chorus, which we can all know and sing along with again. So it goes, carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. So it's that one more time, but I'll do it on my own. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. So you can just join in with that in between each bit, okay? But it will be a little bit higher. Hand in hand, also the amazing Peggy Seeger, of course. All hail, amazing Peggy Seeger. Also, a fantastic interviewee in this book. You will love her, she's wonderful. Hand in hand, the line extends all around the 9-mile fence. 30,000 women chant, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, near home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Singing voices rising high, we dove into the wire. In our hearts a blazing fire, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, near home and far away. Carry Greenham home. It's great when you sing along because it covers the chords when I play with that, which is awesome chords. No one asked us if we cared, if crews would be stationed here. Now we've got them running scared, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Woman tiger, woman dog, help to save the world you love. Bound with fist in iron glove, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Thank you all very much. Thank you to Sue and Bridget. And if you want to see anything on the screen there, we've got a couple of animations and a really nice piece of sound art that the lovely Colin can play with headphones and things like that if you want to have a look at that. It's a shame. And I will be here if you want to buy the book. She came desperately. Thanks for thank you so much. Is it good? Yes. Oh, I should drop on the end. It's nice, isn't it?
Just bear with me 1 second.